In a world that never stops talking, silence has become a rare and powerful commodity. But what if I told you that the greatest leaders, the most influential figures in history, understood that true power isn't about what you say, it's about what you don't. Silence is more than just the absence of sound. It's a force, a weapon, a strategy that commands respect without a single word. Consider this. In the age of social media and constant communication, where every thought is broadcasted for the world to see, silence stands as a testament to control. Why does it seem that the most enigmatic, the most powerful individuals speak the least? Why do we instinctively assign wisdom and authority to those who say nothing? Could it be that, in a world obsessed with noise, silence offers a hidden advantage that most are too distracted to recognize? This isn't just speculation, it's rooted in psychology and philosophy. Strategic silence isn't just about being quiet, it's about choosing when and why to withhold information, to make others feel the weight of your presence without uttering a word. In philosophy, thinkers like Carl Jung understood the depth of silence as a means of self-reflection, a tool for understanding both oneself and the world. In psychology, silence triggers a power imbalance, drawing others into a dance of uncertainty and revealing truths they would rather keep hidden. It is in this tension, this quiet space, that power is forged. Today we'll explore how silence can reshape your approach to leadership, communication, and personal power. But here's the paradox. The more you try to fill the silence, the more you risk revealing your weakness. The more you remain silent, the more you gain control. Are you ready to master the most underutilized tool in your arsenal? Because silence, my friends, isn't just golden. It's power in its purest form. Have you ever noticed how, in a room filled with voices competing for attention, it's the quietest person who often draws your gaze? Consider for a moment that silence isn't merely the absence of speech. It is a profound statement, a calculated choice, and perhaps the purest form of power. We exist in a culture obsessed with being heard. Social media encourages us to voice every opinion, every thought, every feeling. Yet paradoxically, the more we speak, the less we seem to truly say. So ask yourself, in a world drowning in noise, could silence be your most powerful weapon? Strategic silence isn't passive, it's deeply intentional. It is the deliberate withholding of words to shape perception, to preserve mystery, and ultimately, to exercise influence without uttering a single syllable. This isn't silence as weakness or indecision, but silence as authority and command. At its core, strategic silence is the art of knowing precisely when to speak, and more importantly, when speaking would diminish your power. This subtle yet profound insight was recognized centuries ago by Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance philosopher and master strategist. In his seminal work, The Prince, Machiavelli advised rulers and influential figures that words were dangerous, volatile, and irrevocable. He warned that every uttered word carried the risk of revealing too much: intentions, fears, vulnerabilities. Conversely, silence kept opponents guessing, turning uncertainty into a strategic advantage. Machiavelli believed that those who spoke rarely commanded respect because their words were perceived as precious commodities, carefully chosen and thus infinitely more powerful. Silence, he insisted, was not the absence of action. It was the highest expression of strategic control. Fast forward to today, our society's constant clamor has intensified this truth. We live in an era of information overload, instant gratification, and relentless digital chatter. Everyone is eager to express themselves, desperate to be noticed. Yet this over-communication often leads to missteps, oversharing that exposes vulnerabilities, impulsive statements that undermine authority, or emotional outbursts that diminish credibility. Silence, by contrast, is an act of discipline, restraint, and strength. It allows you to remain composed amid chaos, making each carefully selected word feel measured, meaningful, and potent. Imagine yourself in a negotiation, a meeting, or a heated discussion. What happens when you stop speaking? The silence grows thick, heavy, charged with psychological tension. It pushes others into discomfort, compelling them to fill the void. And in their rush to relieve that discomfort, they unintentionally share more information, perhaps their true motivations, fears, or strategic vulnerabilities. Silence thus becomes a tool of revelation, effortlessly extracting valuable insights without coercion or force. This dynamic highlights the paradoxical nature of silence. In saying nothing, you gain everything. In modern communication, whether in business, politics, or personal relationships, mastering strategic silence sets you apart. It grants you a psychological edge, positioning you as calm, deliberate, and authoritative. In conversations dominated by superficiality and noise, silence conveys depth and gravitas, creating an aura of mystery and respect. People intuitively associate silence with wisdom, assuming the silent observer possesses insights they themselves lack. Thus, silence transforms you into a figure of quiet authority, someone whose perspectives carry more weight precisely because they remain unspoken until truly necessary. Yet, to fully harness the power of silence, we must understand the psychological mechanisms that underpin its effectiveness. Why exactly does silence compel others to reveal more than they intend? Why do we instinctively attribute wisdom and authority to those who remain silent? And why, despite silence's evident strength, do we so often struggle to embrace it? These questions lead us directly into the heart of silence itself, into its profound psychological undercurrents. To truly master the art of strategic silence, you must delve into these deeper forces, understanding how silence exploits human psychology to yield unparalleled power. Let's explore precisely how and why silence holds such immense sway over our perceptions, behaviors, and interactions, unlocking the hidden mechanisms that make silence not merely effective, but truly extraordinary. Humans, by their very nature, are driven by the need for certainty. From an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors survived by rapidly judging their environment, relying on visible and audible clues to assess threats and opportunities alike. Today, our minds continue this ancient practice, quickly evaluating others based on what we see and hear. Every conversation, every interaction is quietly governed by these instantaneous judgments. But what happens when there's nothing to judge? When the familiar cues vanish into silence? This is precisely why silence wields such psychological power. It denies people the comfortable certainty they crave. When someone chooses not to speak, their intentions become unreadable. Deprived of familiar verbal cues, our minds race to interpret the silence, grasping at anything that might explain it. And in this uncertainty, we often project our deepest assumptions, hopes, and fears onto the silent individual, inadvertently granting them a level of insight or authority they haven't explicitly claimed. Consider a simple scenario. Imagine yourself presenting an idea at a meeting. You've passionately stated your case, yet someone crucial to your success says nothing, their expression neutral, unreadable. What do you feel in that moment? Anxiety creeps in, uncertainty builds, and you become acutely aware of their silence. In that silence, your mind scrambles to interpret. Are they skeptical, supportive, dismissive? The discomfort quickly grows unbearable. Almost reflexively, you speak again, elaborating more than you intended, providing justifications you hadn't planned. Why does this happen? The answer lies in our instinctive aversion to silence. When faced with silence, most people feel compelled to fill it, driven by the discomfort silence creates. Psychologically, silence generates tension, an unresolved ambiguity we instinctively find troubling. We rush to restore balance, to return the conversation to familiar ground, speech, sound, and predictable responses. In doing so, we unknowingly reveal deeper truths about ourselves, exposing vulnerabilities and thoughts we intended to keep hidden. Thus, silence becomes an unspoken form of interrogation, extracting information effortlessly through our compulsion to break the tension. Carl Jung observed that silence often triggers a form of psychological projection. The silent figure becomes a blank canvas onto which others paint their inner thoughts and emotions. If we value wisdom, we perceive silence as reflective depth. If we respect authority, silence embodies self-control and command. Without explicit confirmation, our assumptions become truths, and we subconsciously elevate the silent person's status, convinced their quiet indicates greater knowledge or deeper contemplation. This psychological mechanism has profound implications. Silence not only makes the observer feel authoritative, but actually increases their perceived power in the eyes of others. In essence, the less you say, the more others believe you have something meaningful to contribute. Paradoxically, frequent speech dilutes perceived wisdom, while calculated silence amplifies it. Consider historical and cultural perceptions of wisdom figures. Philosophers, sages, spiritual masters, they seldom spoke unnecessarily. Their power came not from constant explanation, but from the strategic withholding of words, allowing disciples and observers to fill silence with awe, respect, and projection. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how," implying a deeper, unspoken inner clarity that silence effortlessly projects. Similarly, Viktor Frankl argued that between stimulus and response, there exists a space, a silence, that contains our power to choose and assert our identity. In silence, one demonstrates supreme control over impulses and emotions, cultivating a perception of true authority. Understanding these psychological mechanisms transforms silence from passive quietness into strategic dominance. Yet silence alone isn't enough. To fully harness its power, one must apply it deliberately and purposefully within contexts of communication and influence, especially where stakes are highest, negotiations and conflicts. In negotiations, silence becomes more than a psychological tactic. It becomes a decisive, strategic advantage. But how exactly does silence shape outcomes when tensions rise, interests clash, and every spoken word carries consequences? What principles must we master to turn silence from mere psychology into an art form of negotiation and conflict resolution? To answer these questions, we now journey deeper, exploring precisely how silence can become your greatest ally when the battle of words begins. In negotiations and conflict, timing often dictates outcomes more decisively than facts, logic, or even force. Silence, when strategically employed, grants you a profound timing advantage. Consider a chess match. The skilled player isn't the one who rushes moves, but the one who patiently observes, calculates, and acts only when conditions align perfectly. Similarly, silence in human interactions slows down the tempo, giving you control over when and how to act or respond. Have you ever found yourself in a heated debate, compelled to respond instantly, only to later regret your impulsive words? Silence disrupts this reactive impulse. It allows you to pause, stepping outside the immediate tension to gain perspective, clarity, and control. While you remain composed, your opponent feels mounting pressure, compelled to fill the uncomfortable void with rushed explanations or premature concessions. Silence uniquely exploits a deeply rooted psychological discomfort. Humans fear silence in negotiation settings because silence is ambiguity, and ambiguity is threatening. The absence of verbal feedback creates intense cognitive strain, and your counterpart instinctively attempts to alleviate this strain by speaking first. In their urgency, they unintentionally reveal strategic weaknesses, concessions, or critical information you wouldn't otherwise have obtained. Without a single demand or aggressive tactic, silence draws out your opponent's vulnerabilities effortlessly. For instance, imagine you're negotiating a salary or a business deal. You've stated your position clearly, calmly, and now you pause. saying nothing more. Seconds stretch into uncomfortable minutes. The other party, feeling increasingly uncertain, begins to justify their position. Soon, without prompting, they disclose their flexibility, constraints, or even their bottom-line offer. Your strategic silence prompted them to negotiate against themselves, placing you firmly in control. History is rich with examples illustrating silence's strategic potency. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy famously employed silence to his advantage. After receiving Soviet leader Khrushchev's tense message, Kennedy deliberately waited, withholding immediate response. As hours passed, Khrushchev grew anxious, sending another, more conciliatory message, one that Kennedy swiftly accepted, resolving the crisis. Kennedy's silence created a timing advantage, forcing Khrushchev into premature action and unintended compromise. Similarly, in personal conflicts, silence dismantles emotional escalations. When someone provokes or accuses, silence disrupts their momentum. Your refusal to engage verbally denies them emotional satisfaction, leaving them to grapple with their own words, often prompting them into apologies, explanations, or admissions of error. Silence becomes the mirror reflecting their emotional state, forcing introspection rather than confrontation. This approach aligns with the teachings of Sun Tzu, who stated, "To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill." Silence embodies this philosophy. It subdues without aggression, overcomes without confrontation. By carefully choosing when not to speak, you dictate the rhythm of interaction, ensuring you always hold the initiative. Moreover, silence enables a tactical outmaneuvering of opponents by compelling them into predictable behaviors. People typically plan negotiations around anticipated dialogue. When silence defies these expectations, it triggers confusion and strategic uncertainty. Forced to improvise, opponents frequently err, revealing more than intended, retreating from rigid positions, or granting unforeseen advantages. Your silence thus reshapes the negotiation landscape, guiding others subtly but powerfully toward outcomes favorable to your objectives. But silence isn't merely about reacting to situations, it is equally about proactively shaping them. In any strategic scenario, silence signals confidence, resolve, and patience, qualities opponents interpret as signs of strength. When others perceive your silence as deliberate calculation rather than passive hesitation, their anxiety grows. They begin to question their own positions, overanalyzing every word they've said. This internal doubt erodes their confidence and decisiveness, granting you the psychological high ground without uttering a single word. Yet the true mastery of silence isn't just tactical, it's informational. To wield silence effectively, you must grasp its deeper function as a tool for controlling information flow. How can silence ensure you maintain the upper hand in knowledge, insight, and strategic advantage? Why is controlling information, rather than overtly dominating conversation, the real path to enduring influence? Let's explore how silence allows you not only to gain the advantage of timing, but to dominate the very currency of power itself, information. Every human interaction carries within it an invisible currency, information. And like any valuable currency, its worth depends heavily on scarcity. This concept, known as information asymmetry, arises when one person knows more than another, creating a distinct advantage for whoever controls the flow of information. Silence, then, becomes a profound method of preserving this advantage, enabling you to keep critical details hidden until their revelation is most impactful. Imagine you're negotiating a crucial business deal. You enter the room armed with detailed insights, your budget limitations, alternative offers, or bottom-line expectations. Each fact you disclose chips away at your leverage, giving the other side a clearer picture of your vulnerabilities. Every word spoken prematurely reduces your strategic edge, placing valuable ammunition into the hands of your opponent. But when you choose silence instead, You carefully maintain control, keeping your counterparts uncertain, guessing, and cautious. Excessive talking doesn't just risk oversharing, it directly exposes weaknesses, insecurities, and limits. Carl Jung highlighted that people unconsciously reveal their innermost truths through impulsive speech. The more you speak, the more you inadvertently reveal your emotional landscape, strategic limitations, or underlying anxieties. Silence guards you against this vulnerability. It forces others to remain in the dark, unable to accurately gauge your true intentions or pinpoint your emotional triggers. Moreover, silence grants a precious resource often underestimated: time. As your opponent speaks freely, you're silently observing, gathering invaluable insights into their motivations, fears, and potential breaking points. Without the pressure to respond immediately, you analyze every subtle detail: body language, voice tone, hesitations. Silence offers a cloak of invisibility, allowing you the luxury of comprehensive analysis without risk of accidental revelation. You remain elusive, an unknown quantity your adversaries cannot confidently predict. Consider historical diplomats or skilled interrogators. They consistently leverage silence to extract crucial information from opponents. By refraining from immediate reaction, they compel their counterparts into nervous chatter, revealing plans, contradictions, and weaknesses inadvertently. This strategic withholding turns silence into a powerful mechanism of control, effectively managing perceptions, expectations, and outcomes without direct confrontation. Yet silence's benefits extend beyond mere tactical advantages. Beneath the controlled withholding of speech lies a deeper psychological advantage. Silence not only protects your strategic information, it also profoundly shapes your image, authority, and emotional strength. It quietly signals confidence, power, and discipline, subtly influencing those around you. To truly harness this deeper power, we must explore the psychological dimensions of silence, uncovering precisely how silence cultivates a profound inner advantage that transcends mere information control. There is something inherently captivating about silence, a quiet yet compelling force that naturally draws our attention. In a world constantly demanding expression, silence stands apart, creating an irresistible aura of mystery and unpredictability. When someone remains silent in situations where others eagerly speak, we can't help but wonder, what do they know? What are they thinking? Silence invites speculation, and in doing so, it transforms the quiet individual into a figure of intrigue and quiet strength. This phenomenon is deeply rooted in human psychology. Our minds instinctively try to fill in the gaps left by silence, projecting qualities like wisdom, self-control, and hidden depth onto the silent person. Think of a confident leader who listens quietly during a heated debate, or a respected teacher who pauses thoughtfully before responding to a complex question. Their silence is never empty. It brims with implied understanding, leading others to subconsciously elevate their status. In this way, silence conveys authority without effort, simply by letting others' imaginations amplify your perceived strengths. Moreover, strategic silence grants complete control over the timing and substance of your communication. Unlike impulsive speech, which often reveals unintended emotions or weaknesses, silence enables you to choose exactly when and what to reveal. By selectively managing your disclosures, each statement you eventually make carries significant weight and precision. Others perceive your words as carefully considered, enhancing your reputation as someone whose insights are profoundly valuable. This careful selection reinforces your authority, positioning you as composed, intentional, and self-assured. Yet perhaps the most underrated psychological benefit of silence lies in its unparalleled capacity for observation. When you're silent, you're actively listening, not just to spoken words, but also to the nuances hidden beneath them. You become attuned to subtle shifts in tone, revealing body language, hesitations, and unconscious gestures. insights that reveal far more about human motivations, emotions, and intentions than words alone ever could. This heightened observational skill enables you to develop a deeper, intuitive understanding of human nature itself, empowering you to navigate social dynamics with exceptional clarity and effectiveness. Carl Jung emphasized that the greatest wisdom arises from carefully observing others rather than rushing to judgment. Silence aligns perfectly with this idea, providing you with the space and clarity necessary to perceive others authentically, free from personal biases or premature interpretations. As you listen deeply, without interruption or distraction, you gather invaluable intelligence, transforming every interaction into an opportunity for learning and strategic advantage. To fully grasp silence's profound power, however, we must return to Machiavelli's foundational insights, where silence first emerged as a disciplined, strategic principle of influence. Machiavelli understood that silence is far more than merely a communication tool. It's a timeless pathway toward true psychological mastery and strategic dominance. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli unlocked a profound yet simple insight about power. The most influential individuals are rarely those who speak loudest, but rather those who carefully control what remains unspoken. To Machiavelli, silence was never a sign of passivity or weakness. Instead, it represented the highest form of strategic control, a deliberate restraint that cloaks intention, preserves advantage, and commands respect. Machiavelli emphasized that rulers must guard their intentions closely, revealing only what strategically serves their objectives. Every spoken word, he warned, carries the risk of unintended exposure, leaving vulnerabilities open to exploitation. Silence, however, denies opponents clarity, forcing them to guess, doubt, and hesitate. By withholding speech, the ruler transforms ambiguity into strength, leaving rivals uncertain and powerless to act confidently. Silence thus grants the ruler the upper hand, precisely because it withholds essential information from those eager to decipher it. Yet Machiavelli's principle of silence reaches beyond mere tactics. It emphasizes a deeper psychological skill: disciplined observation. By speaking less, you naturally shift into the role of the observer, a position of immense advantage. As the silent figure, you watch carefully, noticing subtle details others miss, hesitations, contradictions, hidden anxieties. Silence allows you the space and clarity necessary to study human nature, granting insight into true motivations, unspoken intentions, and concealed vulnerabilities. Moreover, Machiavelli recognized silence as a practice of profound self-mastery. Impulsive speech often exposes emotional weakness, signaling insecurity or a lack of discipline. Silence, by contrast, demonstrates inner strength and emotional control. It requires patience and self-awareness, reflecting confidence and maturity. Machiavelli argued that only those who have mastered themselves can hope to truly master others. Strategic silence embodies this principle, symbolizing discipline, resilience, and emotional clarity, traits central to effective leadership and enduring influence. The long-term benefits of mastering silence are not merely strategic, they're deeply psychological. Consistently practicing silence reshapes your mindset, training you to resist emotional impulses, enhancing your resilience, and strengthening your capacity for focused observation. Over time, you become more intuitive and discerning, able to navigate complex social dynamics effortlessly. Your words carry more weight, your presence commands greater respect, and your inner emotional state remains calm and unshakable. Knowing the theoretical power of silence means little unless you apply it in your everyday interactions. Throughout this exploration, we've uncovered an essential truth. Silence is not merely the absence of words, it is a powerful form of strategic strength. Silence allows you to command conversations, shape perceptions, and influence outcomes without ever surrendering your position. From Machiavelli's timeless insights to modern psychological principles, we've seen that silence creates mystery, enhances authority, and compels others to reveal their vulnerabilities, giving you unmatched control over interactions. Yet strategic silence is more than just a tactical advantage. It is an expression of emotional maturity and self-mastery. Viktor Frankl reminds us that between stimulus and response lies our true freedom and power, the very space silence inhabits. Silence provides the opportunity to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Embracing silence transforms not just your communication, but your inner resilience and emotional clarity. Now, reflect honestly. How often do you rush to fill silences out of discomfort or insecurity? How frequently do your words unintentionally expose weaknesses or undermine your authority? Imagine the strength you'd gain by consciously practicing silence, by listening more carefully, speaking more intentionally, and controlling the flow of information to your advantage. I challenge you today. Begin actively incorporating strategic silence into your daily life. Practice intentional pauses before responding. Learn to embrace the discomfort of silence, using it to deepen your influence, strengthen relationships, and empower yourself emotionally and psychologically. Now, I'd love to hear your perspective. How do you see yourself using silence strategically in your interactions? Share your experiences and intentions in the comments below. If you found value in exploring the profound power of silence, please like this video and subscribe for more insightful discussions on psychology, philosophy, and personal mastery. Let's continue this conversation, together discovering how silence can make us more intentional, influential, and powerful communicators.